G'day to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's Thursday afternoon, and it's a beautiful afternoon up here at Nelson Bay, Port Stephens, and I'm up here on Mount Tomaree. I've taken myself out onto a ledge, as you can see, and I've got this magnificent view of Zenith Beach, Box Beach, and all the way across there to Fingal Bay. And that little island out there is Shark Island, and from what I can see, it looks like it's close to low tide today, and you can almost probably walk across that spit. I'll see tomorrow when my granddaughters are up here. We may take a walk across there and check things out. So what I want to do today is continue along the tradition of Jim's 5am Club by delivering yet another book summary. And today's book summary is going to be a classic, a book that is 400 years old, and a mystical story that has some wonderful messages for all of us to learn from. So the book is entitled Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, who was the author of this wonderful book. And he kicks off the book with a beautiful quote, something for us to contemplate and to think about. And it's probably timely to do this book summary because it is the Roman Catholic and Protestant Easter weekend. It's a weekend where a lot of people spend time with family and friends, but it's also a time that for some others it could be a lonely time and a time of pain and suffering. And Paula and I are preparing to go to the ballet in a couple of weeks' time. We've been subscribers to the ballet for probably 40 years or more, and we go to 4 performances every year. And the first performance in 2023 is the ballet based on Don Quixote. So I look forward to going to the ballet. It's my opportunity just to chill and to get away from the rat race. And I just love the silence, I love the classical music, and I love the athletic performances by the wonderful dancers that we have in the Australian Ballet. So getting back to this book, the author says something quite profound, and what I'll do is I'll dwell on it for a moment, because it is something quite beautiful to contemplate and to think about. And he says, and it's probably timely as well, given that the world is going through some tremendous struggles with war, with financial challenges, with cost of living issues, but the author helps put things into perspective, where he says that he who loses wealth loses much. There's no doubt about it. If you lose your wealth, then you lose a lot. But he goes on to say that he who loses a friend loses more, but he who loses his own courage loses all. So something to think about, something to meditate on. And I guess what I can do is I can probably add one more element to that, where he who loses God, or he who loses his relationship with God, loses everything. So getting back to this book, which is 400 years old, is the second most translated book in the world. And it's a story of transformation. It's a story that celebrates chivalry. It celebrates where people create and express a voice for the voiceless. It's a book that celebrates the people who fight, the good fight for the defenseless, and those that fight the wicked ones in the world. So it's an old-fashioned sort of story. A lot of those elements are no longer popular these days. People will talk about things in their middle-class dining rooms, but it's usually just woke chatter. People just trying to show themselves to being caring, but when it's all said and done, the only thing that they care for is their selfish selves. So we're talking about a time where people would give up their lives, give up their wealth, give up everything to help people, to make things better for their fellow citizens. And it's a call to action for each and every one of us to try and relive those virtues of yesteryear, as opposed to submitting and spending too much time enjoying the passions of the modern world. So Miguel de Cervantes tells us here, one of his key points is that many of us tell ourselves stories which can help us in the right way, but some of the stories we tell ourselves can also create false impressions and give us false hope, especially the stories which are not connected to reality and may lead us into problems and issues in the long run in our lives. And for that reason, we are called to try and live a balanced life. By all means, have big dreams. By all means, try and achieve lots of wonderful things in your life. But by the same token, we need to be balanced in the beliefs that we have, the beliefs that we share, the stories that we tell others, and the stories that we tell ourselves. Don Quixote had read lots of books that sparked his so-called madness and his path, his unique path that he took in his life. What he did was he enabled magical eyes in himself to be able to see things, to see opportunity, to see goodness where others were blind and could not see anything. But he does also talk about the fact that we need to have open eyes as well to be able to see the enemy. And the enemy for most of us, for many people, is the enemy of loneliness that people face. And there are no more lonely times than what we have in the present. You look at Australia in 2023 and you find a country that is wealthy, that has everything you could possibly wish for. And yet you have people suffering, people in pain, and you have one of the highest per capita suicide rates amongst youths in the world, which is just mind-boggling. How can you live in a country, in a land with so much promise, and yet have so many issues and so many problems that seem virtually irrelevant compared to the problems that people have in other countries? I often say to people that there are children in other countries who don't have food to eat, who are struggling to survive, and yet will fight to survive, will do whatever they can. Their parents will do whatever they can to help these children survive. And yet you've got children in a wealthy country like Australia who have given up hope and just want to take their lives and end everything, which is a paradox, an amazing paradox, to think that, as we mentioned before, that there are people who have nothing, who want to fight to create something in their lives, and there are people who have everything and yet want to fight against society, want to fight against their lives, want to fight against God, and basically end everything for some silly reason, some reason that I guess is irrational, is the only way I can describe it. I understand it in one way, but on the other hand, in relative terms, I find it hard to get my mind around. So the next point that the author makes is a beautiful point. He says that every knight in shining armour needs a squire, or someone to share the ideas, the ideals, and the challenges with. Life on its own is quite boring, I guess, is one way of putting it. What we need is people around us that we can share this beautiful creation with. Whilst I'm here by myself, sitting on the cliffside here, watching this majestic vista, it would be lovely to be able to share this with other people. And I guess vicariously I'm doing it through this YouTube channel because it is just beautiful, absolute beauty. And there are people who live in Sydney, live in Australia, and live in other countries that I'm sure would give up everything to come here just to be at this point where I'm sitting, just for a moment, to be able to take in the beauty of God. The author goes on to say that we need to share our experiences, we need to share our values, and we need to share our life with others. It would be an absolute pity to live a whole life with which you've got very, very few shared moments. We need people to understand us and people that we wish to understand. And we need to be able to express our deep imagination. And everyone needs a soulmate, somebody who they can connect with in different ways in order to feel alive and to enjoy not necessarily their whole life journey, but paths and parts of that journey. We need to be able to share our problems, our challenges, our troubles with somebody else. And that other person could be a family member, could be a spouse, could be a sibling, a cousin, a workmate, or just simply a friend in the moment. The author also goes on to say something quite profound, that a man also needs a woman. And why would a man need a woman? I guess given that this book was written 400 years ago, it makes sense in terms of what he's saying. I'm conservative in my views, and I also agree with what he says in terms of a man needing a woman. And he goes on to say that a man also needs a woman to idolize, to think of in times of trouble and come back to in times of trouble. I go to work from time to time, and regardless of the challenges that I face, I always look forward to getting home and being with my soulmate, my wife Paula. It's something which I guess it's hard to describe. Now, by all means, we have our ups and downs. We have our good days and our bad days. But what the author here is saying is that you need somebody to come home to. You need somebody to idolize. You need somebody to understand, and somebody who understands you, in order to get through the various challenges that we each face on a daily basis and at different stages throughout our lives. You know, we need somebody who's able to minimize the downturns and maximize the upturns, to bring us joy when we're happy and to bring us nourishment and relief when we're feeling pain and suffering. So in this book here, Don Quixote, Sancho was an opportunist, but he was also a good friend. He was a simple farmer, but he took the risk, and friendship requires trust. It requires somebody taking a risk to be with somebody, to share somebody's life, and to believe in their dreams. You know, being a friend or being a comrade or being a spouse is somebody who tries to imagine someone else's world and to open up your own perspectives, to try and be part of that and to try and shape it and to try and improve it. So life is a challenge, and as Don Quixote here says, you know, we can live an ideal life, we can be chivalrous in our ideals in terms of trying to be the special person in other people's lives, to bring them joy, to bring them comfort. But we also need other people to bring out the best in us, other people who lead us to discomfort, who push us to lean just outside our comfort zones, because it's by being challenged, by living just outside your comfort zone, that you actually grow and develop as an individual. So one of the key messages in this book is that we need to trust, we need to take risks, we need to be uncomfortable in order to create comfort for others and in order to build a better capacity in ourselves to be able to deal with the many challenges that will no doubt come our way throughout the many days of our lives. So the key message is for each and every one of us to embrace challenge, to embrace problems, not only our problems, but the problems of others, and to invest in our growth and development so that we can become bigger and better vessels and portals to be able to create good in other people's lives. The reason why God gives us our fair share of problems is for us to learn meaning, for us to gain purpose, for us to build skills, to build and to express our calling or callings, to become bigger, richer and better, not just for us to satisfy our own selfish needs, but for us to be able to take that wealth, to take those riches that we've been able to accumulate and to share them with others in our lives. We are given opportunities to become financially wealthy, and it's not to fill our garages with Ferraris and our airports with private jets and our postcodes or our lives with wonderful houses and holiday houses. It's to use those gifts, to use those investments, to use those lessons that we have gained along the way to comfort others who haven't quite made it yet, and create a ripple effect that will go on and help others, a ripple effect that will create positive expectancy, a ripple effect that will create positive outcomes, not only for you, but for others, and give them a leg up, give them a lesson, give them a breath, and give them an opportunity to live and express their calling and to go on to bigger and better things in their lives. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I love it up here. This is my bolt hole. Every time I come to Nelson Bay, I always come up here and take in the beautiful surroundings, and every single time is completely different. Tonight we're going to have a moonrise, a full moon rising out there in the ocean, and we're going to have a sunset just about 10 minutes earlier over there in the west. And because I sit up here, I've got a 360-degree view. I can witness the sunset and the moonrise all happening within a quarter of an hour of each other, which is a phenomenal experience, to say the least. Anyway, take care. Have a good Easter for those celebrating Easter over the weekend, and for those celebrating the following week, we can wait for our turn and to live, learn and pass it on, and to share all of our love with others as God shared his love with us. Yassas, take care, and bye for now.